Hello, and welcome to Coaching Conversations with Sherry. I'm Sherry McCardle. Get yourself a good cup of coffee or your favorite cup of tea, lean in and get ready to grow. In our last several videos, we've been exploring the great resignation and the great discontent in order to understand why people are leaving their places of employment in record numbers, many of them without a job to go to. But I think we're missing something to understand the reasons why. I think we have a compassion deficit in leadership and thus in cultures of businesses in this country and possibly around the world. People are not feeling that leaders are caring and concerned with their situations, but more importantly, that they're willing to do something about it. Compassion is not on the list of many of the leadership capacities that I see with myriad clients over many, many years. Compassion is not on the radar when strategic frameworks are being formed and created. We are very concerned with how our customers perceive us. And yes, we are looking for ways to align our talent and culture in order to serve those customers and meet our vision. But we are not putting value propositions into those strategic frameworks that talk about the importance of compassion in forming a caring culture. I'm not sure we've seen enough of it to know what it is. I think we have been putting profits above people, and I think people are noticing the indifference that is felt with them. If we just look back during the pandemic, which are the companies that kept people on for as long as possible with very senior leaders cutting their pay in order to make that possible? Or did we terminate and furlough people by the hundreds and thousands? I think a compassion deficit may also be at play when we look at the fact that DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion activities in our organizations are not progressing as much as possible. Non-whites are leaving the workforce in higher numbers to go and become self-employed, not to work someplace else. Is that a symptom of the indifference they're feeling from leaders in the organizations? A compassion deficit is a serious matter. If we've missed it, if we don't know how to hire for it, and if we haven't experienced it ourselves, how can we bring more of it into the organization? So let's look at the difference between compassion and what we see more often, which is empathy, listed on the value list of organizations for their operating principles or values. They're two very different things. Empathy is feeling other people's feelings. A couple of types of empathy: cognitive and affective empathy. Understanding others' emotions through cognitive empathy and feeling the appropriate notions through an affective type of empathy may feel good in the moment, but it doesn't change the circumstance of the people who are suffering. Compassion, on the other hand, is understanding and acknowledging the emotions of another, even though we may not be feeling it, showing genuine care and concern for the other person, and most importantly, being willing to do something about it. These are very different states. I think we see empathy on values lists, but it is just a shot in the arm for the moment. It doesn't change the circumstance for the other person. It might feel good, but if we're too empathetic, we also may be fatigued and drained from the empathy that we might be showing people. And if we're indifferent or not empathetic enough, people aren't going to feel heard or listened to. But if we are compassionate, they will feel heard, they will feel listened to, and both of our brains will receive a really positive hit in neurobiology of both dopamine and oxytocin. Both people will feel that as a result of genuine compassion. So let's take a very simple example of how this shows up at companies. Employers have been asking for feedback for decades. They send out employee surveys, they do individual interviews, they want to know what leaders in the company can do better. They aggregate all the information. They probably spend millions of dollars on studies of this, and back come the results. And what do we hear? We hear some things that we genuinely didn't know. We validate some things we did know, and we look at what we're ready to change. We go for sometimes what the low-hanging fruit says, things we can make better, easier, and faster. But here's the thing. In general, people will say, who participated in these surveys, that management and leadership is not listening when people tell them that they are exhausted, stressed, and burned out. They are not listening and making changes when they ask to continue working remotely or continue a hybrid model because they feel more productive. And they are not listening when they say that they can be equally as productive in a 4-day work week. That's what's really happening in workforces. So how compassionate are we? We show up as leaders when adverse situations happen to individuals, of course, and we do some wonderful things for them. We go to a funeral of somebody's spouse or mother or father. We show up in many ways. So this is not to say that we are not feeling human beings, but in the very design of work and the relationship that people have with work, which is changing dramatically, how compassionate are we? We can't dole out compassion with a blunt instrument. So the days of having consistent applications are over. We have to look at what each individual needs and provide as much as we can. And we have to dig down to understand that the very nature of the way we are working can change, must change, and will actually be better when we have the right people that we've hired and brought into the organization with the right values and doing the right things for the company and for our customers. Where do we learn compassion? Well, we learn it, I think, as we grow up. How much compassion was shown to us at home by our teachers, by people who were friends of the family. What happened when we fell down, brought home a bad grade, didn't perform at our best? Did we get empathy or did we get compassion? I think of my dad, who was an immigrant to this country and who came through World War II in a very difficult circumstance. He came here as a late teenager after suffering terribly in Europe. And I remember distinctly something that he would tell me and my siblings, and it was this: no pain, no gain. And he would say, pick yourself up by the bootstraps and go at it again. Now, I'm not here to challenge his parental advice. In some ways, it was good. It taught me resilience. But I can say it didn't show me a lot of compassion. I didn't feel that he was actually on my side. He was giving me sort of a tough edge to make sure that I could go out into the world and be independent. And I was, and I did. But I can say that I found more compassion in some select teachers in my life, both in my childhood and in college, a couple of them who were just incredibly compassionate in helping me to get better at whatever it was, whatever my problem was. They were there for me. I was at the dentist recently. I do not like the dentist. I don't know about you, but it's the last place on earth I ever want to be. When I was a kid, I had a dentist that was really rough, not a great bedside manner, but I have found my way to somebody very special. And for me to say that about a dentist is pretty impressive. He's amazingly skilled. He's amazingly gentle. He has a way of communicating, and I always feel in his hands that no matter what is going on, I can stop him if I'm feeling pain. He makes me feel that every time I come in, and he's highly relational. I trust him. So when I was having a procedure the other day, and it was tricky, he had to get in and do some things with fillings and repairs in my teeth. Instead of feeling my anxiety about being at the dentist, you know what? I noticed the incredible skill and compassion of this man and the amazing teamwork between he and his hygienist. She was anticipating what he needed to do before he even asked. When they were done, about an hour later, I said to them, "Thank you so much for the incredible skill and compassionate practice of dentistry that you provide, and the amazing teamwork. I felt like you had me at every moment. People first, technical skills second." And I knew he could do the job, and he did. He was really touched. And when I went out to the front desk as a thank you, in the moments that I just walked, he made some special provisions for the cost of my dentistry today, on that day. I don't think he hears that very often because so many people are afraid to go to the dentist and focused on themselves. But I thank him deeply for his compassionate care. So do we have role models for compassion? Who can we think of? And are we self-compassionate? Or do we focus on the things we've done wrong? Do we fixate on those before we see the incredible job we did and the improvement we could make? I think there is room for improvement here. So as we move into 2022, a new year, let's look at our leadership with a new lens. Let's be compassionate leaders, not just empathetic. Let's focus on compassion, resiliency, and empowering others. Let's create strategies that are good for our people and our customers and clients. Let's do it for humanity. Let's do it because it's the right thing to do. And let's be wildly profitable in the doing. There are some businesses who've held on to people through all kinds of adversity. They stayed. Let's be that place of employment that people are drawn to and that they want to continue with for the rest of their careers. Let's make those value propositions count, and let's put them into action. In other words, let's move from this idea of just being successful to being significant in the eyes of our people and the impact we can make on them, their families, and their communities. Wishing you an incredible 22, one filled with new levels of significance. Until our next time. And oh, by the way, our next cohort for Lead for Good will begin in April. We're full for this cohort. I know this is on people's minds, wanting to come together, learn from each other, from the best practices in the world, post-pandemic, and building the kinds of organizations that people will flock to and stay with and build their careers in. Join us. Enrollment is taking place now. You can find it on the website, sherrymccardle.com. Until next time.